Hey guys, George at SoundTraxx here, and this week we're going to get back to our Operations 101 video series, but we're going to start a little mini-series in the videos talking about operations with lights. So guys, have you ever wondered what those lights mean on your locomotives? They actually indicate things when you're running your trains. So let's go ahead and run some trains. We'll talk about lighting and what all that entails. So let's get started. Now, typically when it comes to running our trains, we're actually going to turn on the headlight, and a lot of us as model railroaders, we've been so entrenched in the hobby seeing directional lights, we just assume that the light is going to be on in the front of the locomotive, regardless, based on its direction of travel. And so we use the headlight as our operations identification to let us know which direction the locomotive is actually moving. What that does, though, is it allows us to operate from, say, a farther back distance where I can look at my locomotive here, see the backup light is not illuminated, so that must mean I'm going forward. So a lot of times when we as model railroaders see the directional lights, we just assume that that's how the real world works. Well, the reality is actually quite different. The real world, not only do they use the headlights for seeing down the track, but they also use it as a form of communication. And a lot of this, you'll have to double check your specific railroad rules because there are going to be variations depending on the railroad and also the time era of what it meant. Because, for example, in the early steam era, they didn't illuminate the headlight at all except to run at night, which was, of course, to illuminate the right-of-way. But, of course, as railroads became more of a 24-hour operation, they were running more and more trains at night, but they couldn't see necessarily flags indicating the type of train or anything like that until the locomotives were right on top, but by then, of course, it was too late. So lights actually became a form of communication, including the headlight. Now, just for this opening montage here, I have my locomotive set up with all the lights illuminated. So just for this video, I'm going to go ahead and extinguish all the unnecessary lights, such as my number boards, class lights, and we'll have specific conversations on each of those. But for right now, our locomotive is sitting here. I'm going to go ahead and fire it up and get it started. And you can hear the low pressure alarm bell as it starts up. Now, sitting here, we have our headlight on. Now, once we're settled in, now you'll notice I can move in the forward direction. We're going to do our whistle signals like we've talked about in videos past. Bell, and we're going to start moving. You can see now that I'm moving in the forward direction. But in the real world, the engineers would not actually turn off or extinguish the headlight to turn on the backup light if they were doing a switching move. So when I change directions here, the fact that our DCC decoders, and in this case I'm actually using a Blunami, allows us full control of the lights so we can have a more realistic operation, not just directional lights. Now, if you want directional lights, that's great. You're welcome to it. That's why that comes that way default. But if we want to try to get more realistic operations, then we can turn off the directional lights. And so that way, when I start moving in the reverse direction here, you can see I start moving, but my headlight does not extinguish. And this is kind of one of those things that when we're doing our operation and our switching move, a lot of times this may simply indicate the front of the train. So like say for example, if you're doing a turn and you're going to, let's say, the grain elevator in the background behind me, but now we're headed back, the headlight may actually indicate to the crew, both on the ground and in the engine, which end is actually considered front. So when they're blowing their whistle signals, they can identify. But if they were doing a backup move, let's say these cars were separated and they were doing a backup move, they certainly would turn on the backup light to now illuminate the back so they can see to make sure that the couplers actually take place. And that would typically be during the dark. Now I'm going to go ahead and move this camera really quickly here. Now, as I've showed you, this locomotive, the headlight does not extinguish when I go in reverse. So what I did here, and let's make sure the camera can see, and it looks like you can. On this particular locomotive, I actually have function 28, as my rear headlight. So now that you can see the light is extinguished, or illuminated, I mean, now I can blow my air horn, do my move, and now the headlight will help us see so that when we're making our switching move, whoops, sorry guys, hit a couple of wrong buttons here. But you can see how the light would then actually be illuminated to let us know that we're coming back into the train. So again, as you can see, the front light is still on and the back light is still on as well. So we can come over here and just turn off the rear headlight, and it extinguishes, and now we're tied into the train, and now we're ready to go. Now this is just one little explanation of directional lights. Like I said, if you want directional lights on your model, you're more than welcome to be able to do that, and then you can disregard the rest of this. But it's good to know how the real railroads do it, because we strive so much as modelers to spend time to make sure that we have all the grab irons in the right place, and we weather them to look realistic, and then we run them at slower speeds to help make them look better on the railroads, and also to help make our small layouts seem a little bit bigger. But now we're using the lights as a indicator for what's going on. And we can take away the directional lights, because with DCC and of course Blunami, we can extinguish that and actually have independent control of our headlight and backup light. Now, one of the other things about lights is the headlight use is also used to indicate for meeting and passing trains. So in this particular case, this locomotive here would be on the passing siding, and he stopped waiting for his other train to meet. So in this particular case, we have our front class lights on, we have our number boards, and again, we'll talk about what those mean. But we're going to go ahead and extinguish the headlight. And what that tells the approaching train is that I'm the train you're meeting, but I'm stopped and I'm on the siding. And again, you want to double check your railroad operations. There's maybe some other indicators such as that. There's also instances where the headlight might be illuminated and dimmed, and the dimmed headlight indicates that you're on the siding, and the fully bright headlight indicates that you're on the main line. But usually, most of the time, it's the fully extinguished light. So that way, when our train is coming in, we can indicate that we are on the siding, so the approaching train sees the train's lights on, knows the train is there, but sees that the light is extinguished, so the approaching train knows that it is actually taking the siding. So let's go ahead and show you that. Okay, so now we have our approaching train. Okay, so now we have our train over here on the siding, and we've got our approaching train coming in. Now the approaching train coming up from behind the camera here can also now see that the light is extinguished, and so knows that this locomotive is now on the siding, so that when these trains come in and approach, they kind of know what's about to happen. So these guys on this approaching train now know that they're taking the main line, and the other ones are taking the siding. So we say hello to each other, and the trains pass. And that's one of the ways that we use headlights for communication, not just for illuminating the right-of-way. But now in this particular scenario, we're going to say that train 2121, which is extra 2121, is actually on the side, is on the main line, and now the approaching train is going to take the siding. So the 2121 is on the main line, the approaching train is going to take the siding. So again, now we have our headlight, but as you can see, it was on now we dim it, and now our approaching train comes into view. And now as our approaching train comes into view, now they already know they're going to take the siding. So they prepare, they cut the throttle as they take the diverging route. Now we say hello. We're friendly Mopac engineers all here. And now these trains can actually pass, and the approaching train knows what is going to happen based on what this locomotive is displaying on the lights. So guys, I hope this has been helpful for you. This is just a short tutorial, just that lights aren't just there to illuminate the right-of-way. They also help indicate things on the railroad as your trains are running. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Be sure to check out the user's guide for more details on how to set these things up. You can also do things such as remapping your functions lighting, like I did here where I took the rear light and moved it to function 28. You can change that up however you like using our flex map function mapping, so that way you can have one step closer to more realistic railroad operations. So guys, we look forward to seeing you in the next episode, where we'll talk about some different lights and what they mean, so that way you can more realistically use lighting on your railroad when you run your trains. So thanks for watching. Now be sure to like this video and also subscribe to our channel, so that way you can be apprised of any new content as we post videos every week showing you just how you can get a little bit more out of your railroading. So guys, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching.